All right, yay. I'm excited, Paul, for you to share your philosophy today and all of your knowledge. I know for me, as a working medium, it's been phenomenal to work with you and really allow you to get it in my head that a certain discipline is needed in mediumship. And I'm glad you can talk about that today.
Good. My pleasure, Lillian, and thanks for organising the event. So, good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever you're from. I know we've got people from different parts of the world. So it's a pleasure to spend this time and share with you. And I love sharing about mediumship. It's my passion. It's been my life for over 30 years now. It comes before anything else in my life. And being a teacher of mediumship, and besides working with mediumship in my own right, and also you being a student or working medium wanting to go further with your development, it's not an easy thing to be a teacher or to develop and unfold your mediumistic abilities. And in fact, no teacher can put mediumship there. There's a lot of people who say everybody can be medium, and I don't feel that's quite correct. I very much believe, and we have to separate the two aspects, even though they're part of each other. Every one of us can be psychic, because the word psychic comes from the Greek word soul, and we all have a soul. And I don't believe with the right type of mind and the right training, there's any limitation to how far you can take your psychic development. And psychic development and our psychic work is a very important part of our mediumship. And, it really is the foundation, because I said we cannot separate the psychic and mediumship, because your mediumship works through your psychic faculty, which is your soul. So the training and development of your psychic faculty and the use of the psychic faculty to help people is very important. Because, I remember saying in my early years to Gordon Higginson, who's the finest medium of the day, who became a personal friend and teacher to me, and I thought he would be pleased with me when I said to him, when it's time for me to do professional sittings, I'm only going to see people who've lost people, who are grieving. And he looked at me in disgust and he said, and who are you to decide that? Somebody grieving for the loss of a home, a business, a job, a relationship, are just entitled to help as much as somebody who's grieving for somebody who is in the spirit world. So I had to change my mindset and my attitude, because like many of you, in the beginning, when we want to look at mediumship, we want to straight away work with the people in the spirit world, and we ignore the psychic aspect. And it's a very important part and foundation of our development. The road to your development and unfoldment is not an easy one, as I said at the beginning of the conversation. There will be times when, you're going along the road and doing the journey, and you'll come to the traffic lights and they'll be on red, and you'll feel everything's come to a stop. There'll be times when there may be roadworks or a diversion in the road, and you'll seem to go a little bit off track. And there'll be times when you'll, if you look at yourself as a car in your mediumship, you'll break down and feel everything's gone to pieces and is not working anymore. And there are times you'll seem to go into reverse gear and you'll seem to be going backwards rather than forward. But it's all part and parcel of the strengthening and the development and unfoldment of your mediumship. And I
feel like a lot of people get discouraged at that point.
That's right. But you see, the point is, Gordon Higginson used to do a lecture called "Many are called, but few are chosen." And over the years, I've met many, many people with a good potential. Some of them have even taken it to the stage of working professionally with their mediumship, but have ended up falling by the wayside because they haven't got the strength that you need to have to be able to fulfill this journey. And you have to be strong. I always say to people, you have to be strong mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And I believe that one of the reasons we fall by the wayside and don't have that strength is that we actually sometimes want to put the cart before the horse. We don't do the foundation work, the development, because what we have to do, we cannot develop mediumship, we develop the power that unfolds the mediumistic abilities. So I said earlier, you know, everybody can be psychic, but not everybody will be able to develop the mediumship to a degree where they can turn it on like a tap and use it with consistency to be constantly using it for other people. That doesn't mean because that we cannot have spiritual experience and a spiritual awareness. Because we're all spirit, then we can have experiences of the spirit, but the degree we can take that development of the mediumistic ability will vary from one person to the next person. And, you know, I feel really, if you are interested in the subject, then I say just do a journey of discovery and allow that journey to unfold the qualities and the abilities that are there. It may be in another form, not in the normal sense of using your clairsentience, your clairvoyance. It may be through inspiration. It may be in a creative way. It may be in a healing way. There's many different ways it can go. And I actually feel too many people want to choose what they want to be at the beginning of the journey, and also at the beginning of the journey, before they've hardly started, decided what they're going to be and what they want to become with it. And I very much believe, do the journey of discovery, do it with joy, and allow the road to unfold in front of you naturally. That is the best way to do it. But first of all, the foundation, and I don't believe we do enough, and it's a continual journey of self-awareness. Because if we cannot understand our own soul, then how on earth are we going to understand the soul of those sitters or clients who come for help on the psychic level, let alone understand the soul of those who want to communicate from the spirit world? Because, you know, we've got to understand ourselves, because they will use those experiences and understanding of yourself spiritually and mentally, emotionally, and physically, and will use your awareness of that of self and life's experiences to help you to understand on those different levels of your recipient and your communicator or person who wants to come from the spirit world. We also then, besides that self-awareness, we need to be able to strengthen and develop that power of the spirit, our own power within our own soul, which is the fuel that makes the mediumistic ability work.
I have to say, that's the part, in my opinion, that's missing for a lot of us.
That's right. So, you know, it's not about going to a place or a teacher or a person. It is being able to go in and, first of all, be able to awaken your own power. But that power, it comes stronger by looking and dealing with the aspects of you. So one, it's acknowledging and embracing the positive aspects of you and allow that to overcome the negative aspects, which weakens your power. We've got to look at those things about ourselves in all its glory that maybe we don't like about ourselves, and maybe some of them we have to accept that's us and there's nothing we can do about it, but allow the positive to override the negative, and be able to work on and change some of those negative things to a positive, and also maybe let go of things that have affected us negatively that we hold on to, and allow to release them. So that is the foundation work we need to do. Nobody can do that for you. That's a personal journey. In my development, I did that for 12 months in a group once a week and every day on my own. And it's not an easy journey to do. The second important ingredient in the beginning is also finding and recognizing and an acknowledgement of that droplet of God that's within us, that spark of divinity, that God particle within, and being able to ignite that divine power that's within us and that is part of us, that God power that's there. So without going all religious on you, because it's nothing to do with religion, religion's man-made, spirituality or the spiritual aspect or this power of the spirit or that something divine is something that's part of everybody. But he said about it becoming a reality within you and within your life and in what you live and what you express. In a way, allowing that something divine to be a reality of your life, be part of you, and also to be able to share with it. So constantly in my life, and I don't mean by being all love and light, I'm allowing that divine, that power of me, God, if that's the word you're happy to use, to share in my life, not just when I'm in mediumship, but whatever I'm doing, and allowing my soul to be able to understand and feel what I'm experiencing in my everyday living. And in a way, spiritualizing that psychic faculty, which again will enhance that mediumistic ability. That is the foundation. And we can run to this place, this retreat, this teacher, that guru, and nobody can do it for you. It has to be a personal journey. We need to give time to that aspect. Very important in the beginning, but it's also a continuous progression. So that is the foundation of it all.
It really is. And I think, Paul, that's the thing. Like when we start to develop as a teacher as well, baby teacher compared to you, people start to feel that if they're seeing spirit, that they're ready to go, that's it, that's all the preparation they need. And that's when sometimes they just let go of this development, because then they start to realize that things are being triggered within themselves, emotions, and they're having to go inward, and they don't think that's true.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's very true. It's like, so before I began my development, before I even understood what mediumship was, before even I knew I was a medium, I had quite strong experiences and objective experiences. And what that was it was the spirit world giving me a wake-up call to begin my journey. So even though I had those strong experiences, and I'm sure quite a number of people will probably be able to say they've experienced the same thing. And then when I began my journey, it seems as if then those strong experiences began to lessen. All it was the spirit world trying to make an impact, to push me and awaken me to search the subject. Then I had to go then into doing that basic groundwork and development first. And like I said, I did that for about 12 months. And then after about 12 months, Gordon Higginson said, "You're now ready to begin." So I've really got to emphasize that part to you. But also, if we look at mediumship today, for me, I feel it's become very loose. And I do question, I have a passion, and particularly about training mediumship in the gallery or demonstrating mediumship. And what I'm finding is that in the beginning, yes, we need to experience different teachers. Every teacher has got something to offer. But I think what happens is, because there's so much confliction from one teacher to the next in this subject, and it's not for me to say there's only my way that is right, but I've been teaching this now for over 30 years, and I know what I teach works and gets results. But what I find is that students then tend to go running to too many different teachers with too many different courses, and then they end up in a confused state. They go to one course, the teacher says this, they go to another course to another teacher, and the teacher says, no, don't do that, but do this, and they end up in a mess. So it's not for me to say who's a good teacher and not a good teacher. It's not for me to say who's the right teacher for you and who's not. And I know you need to experience various ones in the beginning of your journey. But I do believe once you get to a certain stage, it doesn't do you good to keep running to too many different ones. And what I believe is that, you know, once you've found a way that resonates with you and a teacher, that you try not to keep running to too many different ones, because you won't go forward in a strong, positive way. There'll be this conflict and fighting with you. And then even though this may, in a way, may lose students, but also sometimes I wonder whether you do too many different courses. I know in my early years, I would only do two seminars, week seminars a year, take on board what I could learn from that seminar. Then I would then go into a practice group or practice circle, then to try and put into play what I was taught on that seminar. So we need to do regular practice group, yes, but with the teaching that we took from that seminar. And then I would go back there 6 months later to another seminar, and then to see how I'd taken it on board and whether I could go forward with it. And then also, I very much believe, again, once you reach to a certain stage, it's good if you can be in like a progressive group. Some people call them mentorships. I don't believe a lot of the mentorship groups are truly mentorship groups. And they're really no different to what I call progressive groups, where you've got the same group of students and you're under the same teacher, moving forward regularly and progressing, but then also then the teacher being able to get to know you individually. Because what we have to look at, even though it's the same vein that runs through all mediumship, it's made individual by you as a person. So the spirit will have only got you to use. So you'll find that depending on your power, the strength and the weaknesses, you will find you on your emotional aspect, which is the base point of the communication. If you've got barriers on your emotions, then you're putting a barriers to the spirit world. If you've got a mind like a butterfly that flits here, there, and everywhere, your mediumship will be like that. If you're somebody who's got an over-analytical mind, you'll be analysing, dissecting, and destroying. So a teacher really needs to get to know you individually. And unfortunately today, a lot of the courses, I mean, again, it's down to students as an individual. You know, you sometimes join these courses and there's like, and even in some of these mentorship courses, you've got like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 people, and you're just a number. The teacher doesn't get to know you individually. And particularly if you want to learn the gallery style of mediumship, that takes time. And we need individual attention. When you've worked, we need time to be able to look at and go through the weaknesses and strengths and maybe different ways that we can move you forward. So you cannot do that with these vast numbers. Yes, there are certain subjects you can learn in vast numbers and certain aspects, you know, like tutorials or the philosophical aspect or the theoretical aspects. But when it comes to the practical application, then I'd be careful on what size groups that you take. For me, I wouldn't dream of taking, I normally say minimum 12, maximum 16, because I can get to know you as an individual rather than just be a number, because that's what it is. And I'm doing a course shortly. It's called Under the Microscope, which some students find difficult because they're not used to a teacher watching everything they do and going through it with them. And some students can't cope with that. But if a teacher's really going to help you rather than just facilitate, then the group's got to be at a size where you can all have that individual time and attention. So, Lillian, I'd just like to ask now, is there either in chat or whether anybody wants to speak up?
That's what I was looking in here. So guys, if you have questions for Paul, go ahead and enter those questions where you see Q&A here in the bottom in Zoom. And if you are live off Facebook, I'm going through all my comments and seeing who has questions for him as well. And I think, Paul, what you covered is very important, because I feel like a lot too in development, students will say, why is that person where they're at? And I've been developing for so long and I'm not there. So I think it's very important what you said about everyone having a unique experience, because not everybody has been through the same. Not everybody, right, would you say, has to work with the same things inside once you start to build the power and sit in the power. And it's not that you won't reach that level, it's just that everybody's different.
Yeah, it's continuous. We're individual, and this is why there's got to be this personal individual development of one's self-awareness and one's own power that no teacher and no other medium can give you. It's got to be that personal thing. I was just looking at what Liz put in the chat. What we've also looked at, she's put about let them unfold, then decide, and that's important, because what's happened is, particularly over the last 25 years, we've become so intense with the mechanics and techniques and structure. Technique and structure is important. It's okay to have the knowledge of the mechanics, but in a way, we don't. But while we're actually working in classes, the mechanics aren't important. But what we've done is we've taken away the naturalness. And what I say to students, and I never, people are teaching these text structures of listing what information you've got to give, even what order you've got to give it. I never tell a student what they've got to give as evidence. That's between you and the spirit world. And if you get into that process, it's going to become so limiting, so controlling to the spirit world, and your mediumship will also become boring. So when I work with the spirit world, I always say, I surrender, I trust. Bring me what evidence you want in whatever way I can receive it. Then, depending on what I've received, how I've received it, then I will put the right technique and structure. And even a lot of students and a lot of mediums, they're actually saying to the spirit world how they want to receive it. I want to see it. I want to hear it. I want to feel it. You're limiting the spirit world. You've got to remember it's a mixture of all three. And when you're working from contact to contact, demonstration or sitting to sitting, your faculties are operating to different degrees. So if you are going to be limited to the spirit world to only give you clairvoyantly, if your energies and faculties aren't right at that moment, then your clairvoyance isn't going to work. And then also the evidence the spirit world might want to bring and what the recipient needs may not necessarily be through clairvoyance. They might need it through the feeling and the emotion that's needed. But if you're closing the door, then you're not going to satisfy the need of the spirit communicator or the recipient. So it should allow, so I say to my experienced students, now forget everything I've taught you. Allow it to come naturally. And then depending what comes naturally and how it comes, then put the right technique and structure. So let's put naturalness first, technique and structure second. That's what's important. Is there
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the first question is, does trance enhance your mediumship?
okay. I actually believe too many people try to develop too many aspects at the same time. So, you know, because trance is the passive mediumship, and then we've got what we do with the private sittings, with the clairvoyance, clairsentience, and in demonstrating is active mediumship. And I believe you should develop one or the other first. And again, you shouldn't decide. Okay. So for me, I went actually into healing first of all, and then the healing worked well. I went from strength to strength. And then once that was strong, naturally, the active mediumship started to open up. So it doesn't necessarily you've got to do the active first, then trance. It could be that for you, it should be the trance first. But again, you shouldn't decide. You should do that development of the power and see which aspect comes first. But I see people jumping from an active mediumship course, then the week after they're doing a trance course, then the week after they're doing this, that, and the other. I actually wish we could get rid of the word trance. Okay, there's true in its full meaning. Trance is very rare. Gordon Higginson actually said most trance mediums are not trance mediums. What we have to realise is all forms of mediumship is an altered state of consciousness to different varying degrees. So with the trance state, there's very few who reach that full trance state where they're totally unconscious, where the spirit world have total control. I feel that there may be those who what we call get overshadowed, and then there may be those who are inspired from the spirit world. But if we look at the trance state in communication, whether that's philosophy or evidence, you're very limited to where you can use it. And that's why I've not given trance that much time in my own mediumship, because I'm limited where I can use trance, where I can reach and touch more people through my active mediumship. I can move into an inspired state. I can move into maybe a slightly more altered state of being overshadowed. But the actual unconscious state of trance, you're limited where you can use it, and it's not really meant for the general public. It's like today, it's become the in fashion, instead of being a spiritual healer, which what we were all called years ago, everybody wants to be classed themselves as a trance healer. And I don't think it's true trance in that total unconscious state. You may be overshadowed. It's all labels. So any form of mediumship, in a way, if you want, is a form of trance. It's an altered state, but one's passive, more passive, where you have to be passive, and one is active.
I agree, Paul. I really do agree with that. And plus, people hear trance and they get nervous and have misconceptions about it as well. But I do agree with this, just an altered state.
So like Gordon Higginson was really probably one of the last trance mediums that really amazed me, which I don't see anybody doing today who's supposed to be in the full trance state. They would stand him up in the full trance state. He would walk down the steps of the stage amongst the audience, the full length of the room, without faltering and speaking, back up, down the room, back up the stairs, sitting back down in his chair. I don't see anybody who can do that. And if you're in full state of trance, that should be possible. And if you look, I hear a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people speaking philosophical, and they're supposed to be in this unconscious state of trance. And it's just the same type of love and light with no substance. If it's a true trance state, then what's being said should be something more that can be said in the normal state, or more than the inspirational state. And when it comes to evidential communication in the trance state, very few people do it at all. Why not? If they're in that full trance state, then that should be able to take place and happen. Okay. Any other new questions?
Beautiful. The next question, which is on Facebook, is I feel like my arms, legs, and neck, as well as my abdomen, gets tense when I ignite my power and sit with my energy. Is that just maybe the, is that normal? Is it normal, you think, the physical reaction? So he's just saying my arms, legs, neck, and abdomen gets really, really tense when I'm sitting and feeling the power.
Okay, well, so what they're doing is, okay, yes, there will be effect on your physical body, okay, but if, and this is the problem with, and I was the same, when we start going into the power, we want to be conscious and experience of what's happening to us, and that actually takes away and has a detrimental effect. So if you're trying to be conscious and aware the effect it's having you physically, then you're not going to move into the level and change of state and in the power to the degree that we should do. So what you need to do is, when you're conscious of experiencing something physically affecting you with your body, you can't just ignore it. So what you have to do is acknowledge it and then move your mind beyond it. Because the more we're conscious of what's happening and experiencing physically, okay, is then hindering us and making us and stopping us from moving into the degree of the power and the change of consciousness that we need to. But it's only going to be with practice that you can do that. It's the same when people say to you, when you do this meditation to go in the power, empty your mind. That's impossible to empty your mind. Just saying, I'm going to empty my mind, put something in your mind. So what you need to do, when those everyday thoughts come into your mind, acknowledge it. And rather than expand and stay and hold on to that thought, let it go. Another one will follow through, but then eventually they'll begin to slow down. So really what we need to do is try to move beyond the conscious thought and move beyond the awareness of anything physical. Then we'll be truly in that altered state, and then truly in that power. But it takes time, it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a regularity of doing that to be able to reach that stage. So the person who's asked that, then just to acknowledge that physical experience they're having, and then let it go and allow the mind to move beyond it.
Move away. Beautiful. Thank you. That was William. Okay, the next question is, what exercises would you recommend for understanding symbols? I'm self-taught and I'm looking for some guidance. I tend to go with the flow of what is presented to me from spirit, but symbols is not an area I do not focus on much. Everything seems evidential that comes forth, not symbols. So should I be concerned about symbols?
No. So first of all, I wouldn't get buying any book on symbols. I wouldn't have any tell you their meaning of their symbols. But also what I would like to say, I actually think symbology is important, and I'll explain why in a moment. But I actually feel symbology is sometimes used as an excuse and a cover-up of being wrong. So you may have somebody give evidence about the communicator, and then the recipient says no. So the medium says, oh, it's symbolic then, and start using it symbolically for character and personality. I think that's bad mediumship, okay? So where symbology is concerned, so I'm quite pleased that they said about theirs is evidence, okay, what they're getting. So I use symbology in two ways, okay. First of all, it has to be that practical evidence, and there are times I might want to use secondary, that practical evidence, symbolic for the character and personality. I also, there are symbols which can be practical evidence. So they may sometimes show me a clairvoyant picture of something which will give me a nickname, a surname, a name of a road, or a name of a place. You know, they might show you an oak tree to give you Oak Road. Yeah. I remember once they showing me the cartoon character Betty Boo, because that was their daughter's nickname. Yeah. Then also what I teach a lot, and every medium I've trained, and even some of the teacher mediums, even some of those from the college, I've taught them this, that you will find, and this is why we shouldn't restrict the spirit world what we want as evidence, because they will at times bring you evidence that they know that you can then use symbolic for the message. All right. So let me just give you a little example. I was giving a young man in, I think it was Denmark, a contact. I went to him with his grandfather, and I said, your grandfather's here, and he's showing me a silver coin in a in mint condition in a presentation box that you have that belongs to him. And he said to me, what's he brought that for? And I said, tell me, do you have it? Well, I'm expecting him to say something else. I said, first of all, tell me whether you have it or not, then I'll give you something else. Yes, I do, but I'm expecting him to say something else. I said, he's brought that as the evidence to prove he's your grandfather, but the reason why he brought that as evidence is to lead me into the message he wants to speak about, because he wants to speak about your financial situation and your financial circumstances. And he says, well, that's what I wanted him to speak about in the first place. So the spirit world will give you as little as possible to give you as much as possible. So you'll find often there's normally a piece of evidence in that clairvoyance which you can then use symbolic for the message as well. Okay.
That makes sense. The next question is, what is the biggest difference between online courses or live for you as a tutor? Are there things you miss in the online version, in your opinion?
I was always wary about teaching online. Lillian talked me into it, and she'd been asking
Yay!
You've been asking me for a couple of years to do it, and I kept saying, no, 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 it's not for me. And then just before lockdown began, I agreed and we set up our first few. And I was a little bit apprehensive, but I'm actually quite enjoying it, actually. All right. Again, certain subjects I'll take like biggish groups up to 30, but they're subjects where we can do that. But again, if I'm teaching, demonstrating mediumship, or it's a regular group, then I like to lift the numbers, because I still want to get to know you individually. I'm seeing people doing like on-day seminars for 2 or 3 days, and they're taking 80 or 100 people. Well, I'm just teaching like a machine, and I can't do that. I still want to get to know everybody individually, and I actually find my energy is better, okay, online, because I don't think sometimes the students realise, or even some teaching mediums realise, that when we're with you in person, which doesn't happen so much online, that we're actually giving you and you're taking our energy, which can be quite draining, which doesn't happen quite so much online. So I find my energy to keep going and keep focused and keep going is a lot stronger. So I still think it's nice to meet the people in person, and that's why that's not always possible for everybody, and that's why next year I'm doing 2 progressive groups with Lillian, where one will be totally online, and then another one will be part online, and then and part in person, so people can then choose which best for them. But it is nice to actually meet the person in physical. But I think as long as the group's just at a size so we can get to know you as individuals, then it's still okay. I think the only one negative I have in teaching demonstrating mediumship is because there's 2 styles of demonstrating. There's where we put it out to the old gallery, to the old audience, which has become the popular form of teaching, which I feel is not good. I think we should learn to be able to put out to the old audience, but we should also learn how to be able to be moved by the power direct to the individual. So that's a little bit more difficult online. But if the group's small enough where you've got everybody on screen, so if I've only got 16 people, we can still learn the direction part as well. So so I've grown into it and quite enjoying it. If you'd have asked me the question last year, I'd have said no, it's not the same. But I've had to change my mind and my attitude a little bit to it. And because we're demonstrating mediumship, if I can just carry on with that a little bit moment, when we begin a contact, and it'll be all of us, no matter how good we are, how practical we can be, there are some times when the information we begin with is quite generic. So if we throw that out to an old audience, we're just going to get in a mess. And with the throwing it out when it's not specific enough, it makes you question then, is the contact going to the right person? So I believe then we need to learn to be able to recognize who the communicator is and be moved and directed to the recipient in the audience. I do throw out occasionally, but if we're going to throw out, it needs to be something practical that we're not getting too many people with their hands up. I did a den for 300 people recently, and every contact with saying who the communicator is, and within 3 statements, I got to 1 person. Yeah, so I teach both aspects. So it's okay to throw out if it's strong enough, but if it's a little bit more on the generic or character, personality, general physical description, character and personality, then we need to know who they are and be moved to them. Okay, I just want to answer the lady from Sweden. I'm coming to Sweden in I think it's Tony Green. I'm coming to Sweden in November in person. The details on my website, mediumpauljacobs.com. I'm doing a 4 or 5 day course there, so you can have a look on there and find that out.
And for those of you guys that are interested in Paul's 2021 progressive, we are only taking 16 students for the online and 16 students for the in person. And again, it's mainly all online, but the intensive will be in person here in Chicago. You can go to Paul Jacobs progressive.eventbrite.com. Again, Paul Jacobs progressive.eventbrite.com. One of those options are almost fully booked, but you can go on there to check out details. And you can go on to Paul's site as well. He always got so many things going on. Paul, they can go, what's your website again, Paul?
It's www.mediumpauljacobs.com.
There you go. All right, thank you.
Okay.
You mentioned it, so I just wanted to say that.
I've got more rooms for friends on Facebook, but you can like and follow on my page, Paul Jacobs, Spiritual Movement.
PaulJacobs.com. I love it. Okay, let's see here. So,
yeah, it's mediumpauljacobs.com.
Oh, sorry. All right, Medium Project, www.mediumpauljacobs.com. Okay, very good.
So, has anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask?
Yes, we do. All right, the next question is, what are your thoughts on development circles with the same mediums giving each other readings every week with no new sitters?
Okay. Well, what we have to remember, we've got to be careful, even though we don't do it deliberately, that sometimes that, what we've heard during each week in the circles, it's there in our subconscious and can come out where we're only really repeating what we've heard before. But then what we've got to remember is, most people in the group or the circle have got lots of people, so you've got to expect that other sitters in the circle or mediums in the circle need to widen their vision of the more outside people, not just the immediate closer people, and that the people in the circle need to do family research and try to know about their wider family that are in the spirit world. But also, there's a lot of information, I sometimes have to smile, when even sometimes when people are doing one contact for the first time, after 5 or 6 things, they're thinking, "Oh, what can I say now? What can I say next?" And you've got somebody who's got maybe anything up to 100 years life experience, So I think we need to open our minds of the amount of type of information and evidence that's there. Okay. So it's one of those things we have to do, and then maybe it might be a good idea if occasionally to invite, not necessarily if you're in a circle where it's all mediums, that maybe that 1 or 2 of you each time you meet can bring in 1 or 2 guests to be the recipients.
Yeah, definitely. That makes so much sense. You have a question online, and it says, Paul, what advice or points could you give to those bringing light to their shadow work? So those that are just developing for the first time.
And I didn't understand the last part.
So basically what she's asking is, when you're starting off and you're developing and you're sitting in the power and you start to go within and, start to realize the things about yourself that need healing, is there any advice on getting through those moments?
Yeah, that can be difficult. I know sometimes I would end up in tears. I'd fall out with myself, not like me, fall out with everybody, fall out about God. But it's all part of accepting those things, but being able to let them go. It's not an easy process, okay? And this is why, it's no good just doing it in a group, which I did once a week. This is why you've got to do it personally on your own and take it step at a time. There's no race or rush. I can remember my final breakthrough. There was something about myself I just didn't like at all and didn't want to accept. And when I finally got to the point of that acceptance, that's me, and I can't do anything, I cried for 2 days. We've got to just work our way through it. But it's also not just dealing with the negative. We're just as negative about embracing the good and the positive that's within. So we need to keep doing that. It's like I can truly now, even though I know my weaknesses, I know my faults, some of them I've worked on, some I'm never going to change. I might be a bit better with them. But even because of those negative things, I know and I've been able to learn and recognise that's good. And even though for my faults and my warts, I can love myself for who I am. And you've got to realise this divine power or this supreme intelligence, creative force, does not judge us and loves us for what we are. And I can remember in my beginning, Gordon Higginson told me to read the book of St. Paul. And if you look at St. Paul and the life he led, and then on the road to Damascus, he saw the light, yeah, and what God said, or the messenger from God said, it didn't matter what he'd been in the past, what it was in the present, it's what he was going to live and express in the future. Because I know when I first came into this and people kept telling me I'd be working spiritually, I've got to walk this path of light, and I thought, there's no way God or the spirit world would choose me because I'm not a not good enough person. Some of the things I've done and am and have been in my life are not very nice. I'm not a good enough person. And I recognise that good within me, because if God is part of us, or there's that droplet of God or that God particle, that God perfection and beauty, no matter what we've been, who we are, what we've done, that perfection and divine beauty is there within it, us all. And it's allowing that to come to the forefront and grow. And even if we can't let go of all the negativity, then allow that beauty and that positive be able to come to the surface and overpower that which is negative.
That's beautiful. And it definitely is important to kind of hold on to that, because it can be hard, you know? It can be hard. And then you start to feel like, if I'm not perfect, why would I do this work? If I can't even heal myself or do this, why would I think that I can help other people, you know?
You know, so I keep saying to you, you know, when people start and come into this journey, you know, I said, you've probably chose one of the most difficult things to do. You know, it's, you know, it's not just being all love and light, you know, and putting on a spiritual overcoat. We've really got to do this self-development and awareness and our relationship with this God our Father, the Great Spirit, the Divine, and it's got to become a reality. And that's not an easy journey to do. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, I say to students, you know, you have a sniffle and you can't come to class. You know, I book my life 2 years away in advance. And it doesn't matter what I'm feeling, what's going on in my life, I've got to have the strength to overcome and honour that commitment and honour that appointment. In 30 years, I've only ever cancelled a course twice, and that was because I was in hospital and they wouldn't let me sign myself out. Otherwise, I'd have still crawled there. You know, I mean, like the times, like, I can remember, say, I had this one day of sittings, and every sitting was a relationship problem that everybody had come about. Okay, it was on the psychic one. And I thought, I can't even deal with my own relationship situation at the moment. And I was in a negative situation with that, with myself and my own life. But I've got to be strong enough to overcome my own negativity of my own situation. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to help and deal with that person who comes seeking help with that situation from me. So, you know, we've got to be this strength, and it's not easy. And if you look, and this is what also, it's not easy to teach this subject and for you to learn and understand it, because we're speaking about something that's not physically tangible. And it's such a fine line, and the slightest thing can break it and snap it, you know. And this is why we said many are called, but few are chosen, and why so many fall to the wayside. Wow. And what I want to say to you all,
that's so powerful.
You've got to remember, you cannot be everything to everybody. All right. I'm going to have demonstrations what I'm not going to be totally happy with. I'm going to still, after all these years' experience, still have a contact where I feel I'm dying 1,000 deaths. You know, I can remember the times when, in the early years when I first started traveling, we'd do maybe a 2-3 day course, then we'd have to do 4 or 5 days of sittings, of 8 sittings a day, 40 sittings. Well, everyone's not going to be brilliant. It's not possible. There'll have been some that would have been excellent. Some have been very good. Some would be good. Some would be average. 1 or 2, I thought you scraped the barrel there, Paul. And there may be the odd person who I'd say, look, it's not working. I don't feel happy about it. You're not happy about it. Let's call it a day. And even then, sometimes they want you to carry on. And I'll say, look, there's no point now because my mind's too much and I'm in too much of a negative with the way it's gone. It's better for you to go away and say it didn't work, but the man was honest, rather than go away and say, oh, I paid for it. It was a load of rubbish. I paid for a load of rubbish and wasted my money. So don't be scared of that. Because again, I thought I'd got to be everything to everybody at a certain level, and it's not human possible. We're human at the end of the day, and we have to accept that as long as we're truthful and we're honest with us. And you've got to realise there's no medium, I don't care who they are, what the reputation is, how many years experience they've got, none of us are perfect, are going to be perfect in every contact, in every demonstration, in every sitting. It's not humanly possible to be so. So as long as we're honest with ourselves, okay, and honest with those we work with, then it's not a problem, because you can actually put so much a demand on yourself, an expectation, and you don't meet them, you can end up then destroyed. I remember a young man who I helped train, and he said to me one day, he says, Paul, I've really decided that I want to become a full-time medium. Will you help me become full-time? I said, I will help you, but I should say no. And he says, why? I said, not because you're not good enough. I don't feel you've got the strength to take and deal with what you're going to have to deal with working full-time consistently. He's now walked away from mediumship. He's given up on it. Yeah. There was another lady, the first lady I took under my wing and I helped, and she came to ask me to help me individually. And she says, Paul, will you help me? And I said, I will, but I should say no, really. And she says, why? I said, not because you haven't got the ability. I'm not too sure whether you've got the commitment and the dedication to become a full-time weekend. And she did very well. She was very successful. But again, she walked away and fell by the wayside. Yeah. And what you've all got to realise, you're not all meant to be full-time mediums. It's not about a career change, okay? And because you're not a full-time medium, it doesn't mean that you're lesser of service to the spirit, and it doesn't mean you're a lesser in your ability as a medium, but it's not right for you in your own life. You know, to do what I've done, you know, it has to be your life. You haven't got time for full committed relationship. You haven't got time for family. You know, I miss family events. I don't have time to be able to say, right, I'm going to play this sport every Tuesday. I'm going to go and study this particular subject and learn a language or play the piano, because I can't. I'm not in one place long enough to it. This becomes before anything. And, you know, it's not easy to earn your living by this, you know. So, you know, if you're, you know, a guy who's got a wife or a partner, and you've got 3 little kiddies to support, you know, it's not easy to do that through mediumship. And even if you can, it would probably mean you'd have to be away all the time, so you wouldn't have the quality time as a parent with your partner and your children, you know. So you've got to look at all these aspects of it. You know, then I'll get people who say, want to pack in their day job and they want to open their own mediumistic healing centre, and there might be a wonderful healer, but again, what responsibilities have they got? They've got to financially support. Secondly, have they got the organising and business ability to go along with the healing quality, to have their own personal centre set up? So there's many ingredients you've got to look at choosing this full time. And, you know, for quite a long time, I set up, you know, I did my mediumship and alongside my full-time job. And I then actually got to a stage where I was having difficulty with both. And I kept saying to the spirit wheel, should I do this full-time? And the answer I got back was, it's up to you to decide that, not us. They won't tell you whether you can do it full time or not. You've got to be true to yourself and look at the other circumstances and aspects of your life. And also, it's got to be the right time for you, and also the right time for the spirit. Gordon actually used to go and tell a lot of the young ladies who got good mediumistic potential, he actually used to say, go away and have your children and come back. So it's got to be the right time. And the spirit world don't expect us to neglect the physical aspects of our life. We've got to have the balance between the two. We're here to experience all things. And I feel it's just as bad being just all focused spiritually as it is just focusing totally on a material life. You've got to have the balance between the two things. And it doesn't mean that your work from the spirit by the spirit world is appreciated less. They think of you anything lesser if you can only give a certain portion of your time because of the other responsibilities and commitments within your life. Because I've seen people destroy and lose everything physically and materially in their life, businesses, work, financial situation, homes, relationships, because they've decided to put it all on the spirit, and then afterwards they blame the spirit world for it. On the spirit world's fault, that was your individual decision to do.
Yeah? Used to have free will, 100%.
That's right.
Used to have free will, and that was my problem in the beginning, Paul. I loved this so much that I was just, that's all I wanted to do, and I felt like I didn't have balance in my personal life, and I had to come to a complete stop and reevaluate what I was doing because I was so depleted and so exhausted.
That's right. It's like tonight. When I finished here this tonight, I shall walk down the road to my local sports bar and chat with the guys about the football and watch the football. All this, where
you're still human.
It's like when I'm doing courses and I'm with students and I say, I'll socialise with you and have a drink with you and whatever. But if you're going to just keep talking about mediumship and tell me all the messages, wonderful messages you've given in the past, I'll go away. I won't come. If you just come and enjoy the normal aspects and enjoy each other as people, then I'll socialise with you. Otherwise, you come out of balance with it. You've got to have the balance. All things, yes, we're spiritual beings, but we're also having a human existence, and we've got to live that too and get that balance with the two. Yeah.
So very true. All right. So the next question is, I think you kind of answered this one already about symbology. This person is asking, I'm self-taught, and she's trying to understand the spirit's symbolism. But again, you just kind of answered that earlier. Just kind of let it flow and be organic and natural.
That's right. There's not a set symbolic language the spirit world have got for us. And like I said, none of us can give you all you can take from a book. I gave the example earlier. We've got to be careful. We're not using this as an excuse for being wrong. Okay. So, it's important, like I said, but I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on it. In some ways, I will only use the evidence symbolically for the message, and I will only use the symbol for personality character as a secondary thing, but it's got to be factual evidence first, as I can say. So, it's okay being natural, but sometimes maybe... I've had students come to me and they've had a natural ability there manifesting with the communication, but then I just had to draw them into line and show them how to use it to the full potential, deliver it and present it. So maybe need to looking at doing something like that now. Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you. The next question is, what are your thoughts on asking the visiting spirit questions during a reading for clarification? During a reading for clarification.
Okay, I never ask the spirit world a specific question. Okay, I feel, and when a sitter comes in, they sometimes have their questions and they want to tell you them, and they'll come in with their list of questions, and I'll say, put them away. Let's let's do the sitting naturally, and hopefully the questions are answered naturally. Because if you're asking a specific question in your mind, in words, then there's also a good chance your own mind can create the answer. And sometimes when the sitter gives you a question to ask the spirit communicator, just by the question they're asking and the wording, you know what answer they want, and you're wanting to give them the answer they want, and it may not be always the right answer, you know. So I think it's better for it to come naturally. Like, say, for instance, so one example, this one lady who I've given sittings to, and several times, and her husband whose daughter in the spirit world. And after several sittings, they said, Paul, you've really helped, and we really appreciate all the help you've given us. But there's one thing we've been wanting. We wondered if you could ask your daughter to give you her nickname. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, because my own mind will start from trying to conjure up all sorts of names. And then I said, but now I know my mind's open for it. The spirit will know you want that answering. So maybe on one of the other occasions, it may come. And then I said to them then, not realising the spirit world were answering their question, I said, just before we bring the sitting to a close, your daughter had a favourite cartoon character. Yes. And it was she got a picture of that character in a frame next to her bed. Yes. And it was Betty Boo. And they burst into tears and they said, yes, that's her nickname. So the spirit world, I wouldn't ask for it myself as an individual.
So if let's say you see imagery, you express it, and you get the no, what you are saying is go in and call out to them, give me more of what you're already trying to give me.
So if I get a no on something, I trust what I've received. What I have to accept is that my mind has either guessed or presumed what it's mean. Okay, so I then take it back down into my soul and then feel into it. And again, can't change into something totally different. It's still got to come from what you've received. And that's why, we did a Zoom session class, didn't we? We're dealing with the no's, where I teach you all the things that cause a no. But then we can't run through the list in our mind. We've got to know within us, in our subconscious and our soul, what causes a no. And then when we get a no, trust what we receive, then be able to then feel what aspect has caused the no, to be able to turn it into a yes.
Into the yes. Beautiful. All right. Thank you. The next question is it common to experience different senses, such as clairsentience, clairvoyance, during a reading?
Yeah, okay. So I sometimes, you see, again, we teach them as three different subjects, okay? And you'll get mediums say, I'm clairsentience, I'm clairvoyance, I'm clairaudience. And I always say, when I work with colleagues who announce that, I always say, I'm a box of licorice all sorts. You'll get a mixture of everything. And I actually don't think they are three separate things. They're all part of each other. And sometimes it'll be like you're feeling it, seeing it, and hearing it all at the same time. You couldn't actually pick out which facet was the strongest in it. And again, and this is why I said, you shouldn't decide and limit yourself how you're going to receive it, okay? It'll depend on your energies and faculties at the time, all right? And also it'll depend what they want to bring as evidence. And I believe a good contact, evidential contact and communication, because there's those people who need the practical evidence, and there's those who need a more feeling and emotional evidence. So the feeling, the emotion comes more through the clairsentience, the practical through the clairvoyance and the clairaudience. So I believe a contact contains both aspects. So if I naturally start off with the feeling and the emotion, I work and allow that unfold, and then hopefully then the practical will come in through the clairvoyance and clairaudience. Or if I start the contact and the clairvoyance and the clairaudience comes first with the practical, then I deliberately then focus on feeling and adding the emotion and the feeling. And then that creates a complete contact. And then again, depending on the recipient and the communicator, how much is on the feeling and emotion and how much is on the practical. Yeah, but I still think they're really all part of each other, but sometimes one will just rise a little bit more than the other and one will drop occasionally. But again, it'll fluctuate from sitting to sitting and even from contact to contact in a demonstration. So don't put ourselves in these rigid set boxes, as I said, of how we're going to receive and what we want to receive. It's too limiting and too controlling. And that's why sometimes mediumship can be so boring. If you can imagine listening to a whole demonstration, medium doing, say, 10 contacts, and they give you the same list of evidence in the same order, in the way they're receiving it, I go to sleep.
Well, and you know, too, with that, Paul, a lot of students saying, that's why I tell them, let go of, I'm more clairvoyant, I'm more clairsentient, I'm more clairaudient. No, your senses will vary. Exactly what you said.
Yeah. I think you'll find in the beginning, you know, I think really that the feeling and the blending and the emotion is often the stronger in the beginning. And then that's why then through that feeling and blending and the emotion and in the power of the communicator, then the clairvoyance and the clairaudience then will naturally start to come and grow. But it depends what faculties are operating at that moment, you see. And also, like I said, it depends on the need of the type of evidence the recipient needs and the communicator wants to bring. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, next. I will have some spirits tell me their names, where they worked, etc. But this isn't consistent. What would you recommend for those who don't give as much info as others? For the visiting spirits, that, I mean, I guess that varies, right, Paul? Because spirit's going to come in and give you different information.
Well, like we just said, you don't want the same type of information every time, you know. And giving an address or a telephone number to a grieving mother won't mean anything. They much prefer for you to say, they saw you go to the grave, to my grave today, and you bought me a new teddy bear and you bought me some yellow roses. So, you know, you don't be a mechanical medium of wanting the same type. And again, it depends how your energies and faculties are to what type of evidence you can receive. So, you know, so you're not going to get the same type of, and you don't want to be giving the same type of information and evidence every time.
Makes sense. Next question is, who are your favorite and most interesting mediums to watch work?
Today, or the past?
Today, would you
today
say there's some that
that's I don't really want to go into names of people. I feel that's right to do. I could give you plenty of names of people from the past, but most of them are dead now, physically. I don't. I don't like. I don't enjoy demonstrations where there's this set ritual pattern. Yeah, and I don't like when a medium is throwing out long, complicated information all in one go to a whole audience. It doesn't do anything for me, okay? And again, I like to see a contact contain practical evidence, but also I want to see the feeling and the emotion as well. And I like to see the medium use a mixture of not just throwing out to the whole audience. I'm not a big fan. I often go to sleep when I hear the medium starting off. Oh, there's a man here. He's about 5'10". He's going a bit thin on top. He's got a bit of a belly, grey hair. That doesn't do a lot for me. I want to see the communicator come alive, all right? And also in a demonstration, humour has its place, but I don't like it when I see humour becomes top of the list and it's just about entertainment.
Mm.
I would rather see a medium have a little bit of a difficulty and a struggle, but trying to do the job they're doing. Okay, it's nice if there's a laugh and there's a humour brought in, but it should come in naturally in the exchange of the communication, or me making a silly mistake. I don't like it when it's constant this entertainment of set pattern humour, and they've got this list of definite one-liners they use all the time. I like to see that communicate along. I like not just it's nice to hear the facts, okay, but also to be able to feel that communicator there, and you can see the sincerity and the genuineness. There's a lot of it now, and even people advertise, forgive me, I don't like it really when it's a show, but and that's what they want to be. They want to be a show, I'm there to do a job, not just for the people who are in the audience and the recipients, but I'm there doing a job for them in the spirit world. And, I want to make sure that person that's communicating with me is going to the right recipients. And this is what worries me today. I can listen to a lot of Dems, and they're throwing all this constant shopping list of information out to the audience, and everybody grabbing and fighting for it, and that doesn't always do a lot for me, because what you've got to realise is, and often I sit in an audience and I can see it's not that it's not a genuine contact, but I can see that the contact is not going to the right recipient, because every audience will have its body snatchers. They'll grab anybody that's going. And if the medium's not confident and trusting, they allow the person with the strongest voice, or who answers the quickest, take the contact when it's not for them. And also here, I get bored when the contacts become too long. They're not private sittings. Once you know you've given and done enough, then move on. Give the little message with it and move on. If I look at the good mediums who I liked when I came into this, when they did their demonstrations, they do 14, 15, 16, 17 contacts. It wasn't all these big, long, complicated throw-out stories, but you had no doubt that contact was there, but to be short and precise. It's like if I do a demonstration, I like to try and do average 12 contacts in a demonstration. Occasionally it might only be 10, but sometimes it can be 14. We've got to get away from this habit that a contact has to be so long. I might do a contact that's only 3 or 4 minutes. I might do another one that's 7 minutes. Occasionally there might be a 10-minute one if it's really needed to stay there, or I've had a bit of a problem or a difficulty. But you're seeing a lot of contacts now at 10 and 15 minutes. And again, the audience get bored with that and they start switching off, and then you lose the power and the energy from your audience and your room. So I don't really want to talk about particular favourites, name people.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, what would you recommend to expand your client base? I find where I live is limited, and Facebook I'm finding is very limited.
You're very tinny and very fast, and I can't catch your words.
No problem. So she's asking, how would you recommend that they expand their client base in a place that's very limited with mediumship?
In physical sense, it's difficult if you're limited with how many people are there. I'll be honest with you, it's normally word of recommendation. That's how it was in the old days, before, when I was working, before all social media, but today it's only through social media, really. And also now we've got this now where people are moving their sittings online. So the only way then really is have your social media account and your than your websites. It's the only way. But word of mouth is the best recommendation. If I look at all the work I have, I've never asked anybody to book to me, or I've never advertised myself for this or that. It's always people who've approached for me. It's been word of mouth. Okay, today we have to put it out there, the advertising, to reach more people from a wider field. But all the people, wherever I go in the world, and the people who organise for me, they've all approached me, like you approached me for Chicago, and then you approached me to do the online. I think really word of mouth and reputation means a lot. But if you're only in a small area where there's not many people, the only way now is try to widen it by on Zoom. Really.
Online, yeah. I mean, honestly, most of my stuff has been online for a very long time now, for over 7 years. If part of the people that come to me or Paul or anybody online is because they don't have that community, a potential for a community around them. So you can do it. You can.
I was talking to my organiser Dublin last week, and she's in Ireland. It's a very rural country. It's not like big population interested in the subject. And she was saying to me, now through the internet, how busy she is with sittings with people from Australia and America. She's based in Dublin. So really, now with the social media and the internet, it's really opened the doors for you now. So maybe you've got to make your presence known a little bit more in that way.
Absolutely. Well, Pai, thank you so much. And again, guys, if you're interested in, looking at what the progressive is for Paul or anything else that he's doing, specifically the progressive, there's still some availability there, and it's Paul Jacobs Progressive.eventbrite.com. Again, that's Paul Jacobs Progressive.eventbrite.com. We have two options. One is fully online, and the other one is mainly online, but with intensive in Chicago. So you can check that out. Also, Paul's website is mediumpauljacobs.com. Paul, do you have any other things going on right now?
If people who have not worked with me before, we're doing a course. Is it the 10th and the 11th of October, a 2-day mediumship course, 10th, 11th of October, is it?
That's right. Oh my God, yeah. So the 10th and the 11th, we have an intensive, a 2-day intensive online. It's an advanced intensive, so it will be intense and fantastic, and he will, have the microscope on us, which is so good because he's working with you individually, right, Paul?
Yeah, and it'll be a maximum of 16 students.
Yeah, so we're only taking 16, and that's going to be the 10th and the 11th of October, and I'm going to launch that by tomorrow. So you'll see the Eventbrite, and I'll send it out to all those that have attended already. Again, that's the 10th and the 11th of October. That's to be a 2-day intensive with Paul Jacobs. It is advanced. So Paul, let me ask you this. It's advanced. So what do they need to have under their belt to consider taking this?
Okay, they feel comfortable they haven't got to be working mediums, but as long as they feel comfortable in being able to try and deliver an evidential contact to a group of people.
Great. Sounds very good. I think each and every one of you guys, this is going to be on YouTube if you want to have somebody look at this again. It's on live in all of the groups on Facebook, my page, Paul's page. If you have any further questions, Paul's amazing. He answers questions. He's a busy man and he travels a lot. But he's very available. But again, most information is online for his classes. And one last question. People were saying, do you recommend Arthur Findlay College to go there and to, have an experience there?
I'll be honest with you, it's a wonderful place to experience, yeah, and I wouldn't put anybody off from going. I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of the teachers I've respected have stood back now a lot. So just because they're Arthur Findlay College tutor doesn't mean everyone is top of the tree. Okay, so you would still have to do your research on the tutor, okay? Because also if you book a course, so like say if I was organising a course, so if there's like 70, 80 students there, not every student can be with me. So there may be a tutor who you like, who's the organiser, but you're not guaranteed you're in their group, okay? But the place is wonderful. There is some good teachers there, but I still think you need to do your research a little bit on the teachers that's taking that particular course before you pick your course, you know? Okay. Somebody says,
Oh, I agree with that. Any other?
somebody's just, I'm just
Thank
looking
you
at the
both for
questions
sharing.
here. Somebody's put, did you ever feel like getting fed up with this work and giving it all up? Yes, many times. It never stops. Okay. We'll all have our moments where we wonder what we're doing. We'll have our negative moments. And funny thing is, it's like sometimes when things go wrong in my material and personal life, and I think this don't seem fair. I give my life to the Spirit. Why should all these things go wrong or negative in my life? And the first thing I want to do is give up the Spirit work and the Spirit world. And then I realise you're giving up the most important thing to you, you know. And this is why I said earlier, you've got to be strong with this, okay? But I find when circumstances, whatever they are, bring me down and make me feel I want to give up, once I come through that circumstance in a positive, I find I move up a gear and there's a shift takes place in my mediumship.
Makes sense.
This one about Kelly, about experience healing and how this influenced your mediumship. I actually went into healing first, which I said earlier, and then through that opened the doors to the communication mediumship. Because healing's passive, it got me used to being able to be in the power and the change of consciousness and stay there, which is not easy with active mediumship. So it built that foundation of being in the power and staying in the change of consciousness first. So I feel it definitely helped build a foundation to move into my communication mediumship by being in.
Then you're just more comfortable in the power. So every time you go in it, you're dealing with things inside of you. And the more you do that, the more comfortable I would assume, right, Paul, that it is to sit in that power.
Yeah. It really is.
Beautiful. So there's also a question here. And they said, this may seem like a dumb question, but I was wondering, I'm seeing spirit in the physical a lot more since trying to get in contact with my spirit guides, and wanted to know why I'm not complaining or anything, but more so just curious. So this person's saying they're seeing spirit in the physical.
You won't see people in the physical. If you're seeing the person in the physical, then it means everybody else around you who's not a medium can see the physical. Okay? That's physical. What you're seeing is clairvoyantly, objectively, rather than subjective. Yeah?
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I want to answer this question if I can before we finish, okay? So, because I think it's important. Somebody's asking, would I mind speaking about the spirit world, what it is like in the spirit world, when you see your loved ones, do they recognise when we pass into spirit? Yes, of course, they recognise when we pass into spirit. So what we've got to realise is once we discard this physical body, we still have shape and form because we've got the etheric body. And the same with the spirit world, we move from this level of consciousness into what we call the etheric world, which is a replica of this world. So the spirit world, or the first stage we go to, that world is as real and solid to them as this one is to you and me. And in that world, if you still want to have a need to go through the physical actions of things like you did here, you can still do that, even though there is no need, because it's a world of mind. But you just to adjust to the spirit world, we can still in a way live similar expression as we do here, But like I say, there's no need. But it's just in its lighter form, the spirit world and the physical body in that lighter form. So being as the body's lighter, the spirit world is lighter, it seems as solid to each other as this physical body feels solid with this physical world. Okay, so so yes, we can meet our loved ones. Of course, they will recognise us. Yeah, so I just quickly wanted to get that in. Okay, so is that okay for tonight? I think everybody enjoyed that, I hope. Cut your microphones off, Lillian. Your microphone.
Sorry. Okay, yep. That was wonderful. It's always so nice to speak to you. You're always so open to share everything and anything, Paul. I appreciate you. I've grown as a medium. Definitely not brown nosing. I feel more confident with the disciplines that I've learned, and I've been reading and working as a medium. And the things that I follow with Paul, even though it's growing pains, sometimes it's tough. It's like, let me go back, and you never tell us what to get, but you tell us there should be this feeling that spirit is there.
Well, I'm glad you said about the discipline, because I find a lot of students who have come to me who've done a lot of courses, they've got no discipline. If you look at anybody with any sort of gift from any walk of life and listen to their story of their training and development with that gift, they always had to have that discipline. Yeah. Within their
When
training.
you say discipline, Paul, it's beautiful what you're saying, though. People might misinterpret discipline. Let me tell you my interpretation of Paul's discipline. Paul's discipline is, if you're going to do this, then really be the clearest voice for that spirit. Don't allow other things to define what you're getting, except the spirit that's coming in to give it to you. Let them be there. Let them be present and let them be felt. That's my interpretation, what you mean by discipline. We can easily start making our own assumptions, giving information to people that shouldn't receive it, putting words in the visiting spirit's mouth. You're saying, let's be the most disciplined, clearest voice. And I love that and I appreciate that, Paul. Thank you
My
so much.
pleasure. Well, thank you for taking the trouble for this. Thank you for everybody for joining, and maybe see you sometime, somewhere, someplace, either in person or online. Okay, so take care. God bless everybody.
Appreciate you guys so much. And
Okay.
if you guys are interested, these classes on the side here. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's below. Thank you, everybody. Many blessings. Thank you, Paul. Have a good